Today we're staining this custom-built live edge ash table with one of our new water-based wood stain colors, Greystone. The table is made from an ash tree from Chris and George's property, and she designed it as a gift for George to fit in a fairly tight space in their home. There's a cubby and cutouts for a floor lamp. We normally would spray this table, but thought it'd be a good piece to demonstrate a fairly intricate hand application. Have the following tools ready: power sander, 120 and 180 grit sandpaper, 220 sanding pads, oil-free tack cloths, your favorite brushes, pad applicators, shop towels and terry cloths, and your finishes. Don't use t-shirt material. It won't absorb stain, it just pushes it around. Water-based stains need a smoother surface than oil stains, but be careful not to oversand. You may end up sealing the wood so smooth it will not take a stain. Sanding is a progressive procedure. On unfinished wood, always start with medium sandpaper, then progress to finer grades. The type of wood will determine your sanding schedule. See our video on prep sanding. Ash is a hard, open-grained wood, so we prep sanded first with 120 grit, followed by 180 grit using a sander, then finished using a 220 sanding pad. Finally, we remove the dust with an oil-free tack cloth. It is not necessary to precondition. GF water-based stains are formulated to condition most wood species. Water-based stains dry faster than oil, so it's critical to plan your project section by section. Keep extender on hand to use if humidity is low, temperature is high, or you're working on a large project. Ideal conditions are 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 50% humidity. If needed, add extender to your stain to increase open time up to 5% by volume, as allowed by local regulations. Stain color can vary on different woods, so always test the color first. Here are 3 examples of different woods: ash, oak, and maple. Notice how differently Greystone looks on each type. We chose Greystone toned with 5% mix of graphite to high performance flat. Here are 2 boards with and without toner. See how the graphite toners really enhance the color. Because of the table's design, we stained the bottoms of the horizontal surfaces first, and this is where we tested the color. We also sealed the live edges with high performance flat. Before I get started here, I like to cut my sanding pads down into smaller sizes to actually fit and conform to the shapes. I like having multiple size foam brushes also, because some surfaces work better with a 2-inch brush and some surfaces work better with a 3 or 4-inch brush. What I like to do before I get started is take the extender and actually charge my rags, because this does a couple of things. It gives me a wet rag in case I have to come back later and wipe off any runs or any marks that I missed. It just makes it easier to wipe the stain back. Well, let's just get going here. I'm going to take a 2-inch brush, and I've already added the extender, and we're just going to work our way right around the front of the piece here. I'm going to lift this up. And the stain actually goes quite a ways, so it doesn't take much to cover. And I'm going to start with, I have a cloth that's already been dampened, and I'll just come back and wipe off the stain. This new water-based formulation works so well. It's so easy to keep open. It wipes so nice. It really does act like an oil-based stain. A lot of times I'll take a bristle brush, a different type of bristle brush, and I'll actually come in with a bristle brush to pull out those corners. And just dry brush out any rag marks. The details on this table are phenomenal. They've actually got little wooden pins in here too, so when you stain over them, it's going to give you a little bit of a detail that stands out. Now you can kind of see, sometimes the rags will leave a mark like that. That's why it's a good idea to have a second cloth or something without a pattern in it, like the shop towels. See, it just removes any rag marks that you may get from your cloth. See that glue spot right there? That's just where the glue is soaked into the wood, so the stain can't take. So I'm just going to take my sandpaper and just give that a little bit of a scuff sand while the stain is wet. And then I'm just going to reapply the stain right over top of it. And wipe it back out. And now it took the color. So let's finish this inside edge here. Now you can see why I have multiple brushes, because they don't all fit the same surface. Let's clean that edge up. And again, I always use a good clean bristle brush. Let's take a look at the top now. I'm going to sand this edge, this live edge, because we sealed it with high performance flat. And the reason we did that was so it doesn't absorb so much color from the stain, because we have a white wood and then a dark wood here. So I'm just going to give this a light sand. And just go right around the edge. This detail is what sets this table apart. Gives us good contrast. We have 45-degree angles. We have dark wood and white wood knots. We have an inlay with some nice ribbon cut ash here. So this is going to be a little bit more challenging to wipe because I don't have a clean line. Every time I go a different direction, I'm going to end up with an overlap. So let's just stain this, but what I'd like to do is a little trick. I like to take extender, and I'm actually just going to precondition the top with extender. And what this does, it's not really preconditioning it. What it's doing is giving me a little bit more open time with the extender. It's not going to affect my color, but it'll give me more workability on this little bit more of a challenging top here. So when I apply the stain, the wood's not going to be quite as absorbent because I have a little bit of fluid sitting on the surface here, and it actually makes it easier to spread the stain. And the key here is working on large surfaces is to get enough stain on the surface so that you can write your initials in it. That's a good indication of enough material. So I want to be able to put my initials in that tabletop, which gives me enough product that I can easily wipe this out. So let's get this thing wiped off here. And again, a larger cloth gives you more workability. And I'm going to get rid of those lines. I'm not worried about them. I just want to get my stain wiped evenly. I think the mistake most people make when staining is they take too much color off. That's where you end up with blotchiness, unevenness. There. Now let's just take that, and I'll follow that again with my clean. I've got a little bit of extender on here. I'm just going to come back and try and get rid of as many of those lines as I can. Because of that 45, I'm always going to have a point where I'm crossing grain. It's not just like a straight board. And on the inset, we want to accent that grain. And as a final note, I'll always follow up with my bristle brush. See, and that just kind of blends all of those lines together. Looks good. Now, let's finish the edges here. And again, this is going to be darker because it's already a darker color, but because we pre-sealed it with high performance, that's going to help us control the amount of color that edge is going to take. Now, there's a couple things you can do. You could come back and wipe it all off, and it's going to set the color kind of deep into the grain, give you a little bit of tone. Or if you wanted to leave more color behind, just come back with your dry bristle and dry brush the edge again. This is always where I keep a dampened cloth, because if I end up with too much color, I want to discharge it onto my extending silk cloth here. All that does is just keep me from putting more color back on. See, and that's just a dry brush technique. You know, we get a lot of questions about what's dry brushing. It's using a dry brush to remove excess product. But what it does is give you detail. All right, now we got the front stained and we've got the top stained, and now you need to kind of inspect your surface to make sure you didn't miss anything. And we've got a couple of little wormholes here. Obviously you can see it, it's got a little bit of powder in it. So let's get a little bit of stain, and this is where I'd like to use a really small artist brush or something that's not quite as clumsy. And I like to work right off the lid of the can without having to dip into the can itself, because I only need a minute amount of material. Now I'm going to get this and actually just force it right down in there. Just doing a little touch-up work here. Now you could fill this knot, which is an option, with an epoxy. But sometimes it's the character of the wood that people really want to show. As it dries out, it will actually just blend right in with the rest of the characters of the wood. And this big knot here typically could be filled with an epoxy and then sanded flush, but I like the characteristics of the wood and that's natural, so I'm going to leave it. Only one coat of water-based stain is usually needed. I'll let this stain dry 2 to 4 hours. If it's rainy, humid, or cold, let your project dry overnight. After the stain is dry, I'll tone with 5% graphite wood stain to high performance, followed by 2 coats of high performance flat. And here's the table completed in a coat of toner and 2 coats of high performance flat. If our stains can work on this, they can work on anything. General Finishes is dedicated to testing, evaluating, and advancing our water-based finishes with the highest quality ingredients and leading-edge water-based technology. Learn more about these wood stains and other GF products at generalfinishes.com. General Finishes. We make tomorrow's finishes today.